Welcome back everyone, this is part 3 of the level 4 Robber of my new Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg series, where we will cover almost everything from alien civilizations to government mysteries. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this series, and of course, thank you for watching. Frankford Slasher. The Frankford Slasher is the name given to a mysterious and brutal serial killer who terrorized the Frankford neighborhood of Philadelphia during the late 1980s and early 1990s. The killer is believed to have been responsible for the murders of at least 8 women, with the first known victim being discovered in 1985. Each victim was sexually assaulted and savagely stabbed, leading to a wave of fear throughout the community. The murders followed a chilling pattern. The victims were often vulnerable women, many of whom were involved in prostitution or had struggled with addiction. They were lured into isolated locations where the killer would commit the horrific crimes. The slasher would stab the victims multiple times, often with extreme force, suggesting a deeply violent and sadistic nature. The bodies were typically found in alleys, abandoned buildings, or vacant lots around the Frankfurt area. One of the key challenges investigators faced was the inconsistency in the evidence left at each crime scene. While the brutal nature of the murders and the geographic location suggested a single killer, the lack of forensic evidence such as fingerprints or DNA made it difficult to identify the perpetrator. The police initially believed that the killer might be someone who lived locally, familiar with the area and the routines of the victims. In 1990, a man named Leonard Christopher was arrested and charged with one of the murders, raising hopes that the Frankfurt Slasher had been caught. Christopher was convicted, but doubts about his involvement in the other killings persisted, especially since several murders occurred after his arrest. Some investigators believe that Christopher may have been innocent or only responsible for one of the murders, and the true slasher remained at large. The mystery of the Frankfurt Slasher continues to baffle authorities and remains one of Philadelphia's most infamous unsolved cases. Despite renewed interest in the case over the years and advances in forensic science, the identity of the Frankfurt Slasher is still unknown, leaving the families of the victims without justice and the neighborhood with lingering questions. Rockmen. The Rockmen refers to a series of unsolved murders that took place in a remote area of Brazil's Serra da Capivara National Park. These killings were shrouded in mystery, involving local legends and strange circumstances that have baffled investigators and residents alike. The victims, primarily men, were found brutally murdered in rocky, isolated areas of the park, often in or around ancient cave paintings that date back thousands of years. The deaths sparked rumors of supernatural forces at play, with locals attributing the killings to spirits or curses linked to the region's ancient past. These legends fueled fear and uncertainty in the area, making the case even more difficult for authorities to solve. The bodies were discovered in ways that suggested a violent struggle, with some showing signs of blunt force trauma, possibly from rocks or other heavy objects. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no clear suspects were identified, and the case became increasingly cold as the years passed. The challenging terrain, limited forensic evidence, and remote location hindered any major breakthroughs. Many in the region still believe that the deaths were the work of something otherworldly, while others point to more rational explanations, such as a local serial killer or group of criminals exploiting the fear surrounding the ancient rock art. To this day, the Rockmen murders remain unsolved, adding to the eerie atmosphere of the already mysterious Serra da Capivara region. The case continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts, historians, and paranormal investigators, but no definitive answers have been found, leaving it as one of Brazil's most perplexing mysteries. Crawford Killer. The Crawford Killer refers to a mysterious and unsolved series of murders that took place in Crawford County, Pennsylvania in the late 1980s. The killings left the community in shock and fear. as the violent nature of the crimes suggested the work of a methodical and ruthless predator. The first victim was discovered in 1987, a local woman who had been brutally murdered and left in a wooded area near a rural road. Over the next few years, more victims were found under similar circumstances, with no clear connection between them except the violent methods used and the isolated locations where their bodies were discarded. The victims, who varied in age and background, all appeared to have been attacked with overwhelming force, and investigators struggled to find any solid leads. As the body count grew, rumors of a serial killer began to circulate. Local law enforcement, along with the FBI, launched an extensive investigation, but the killer's careful approach left little forensic evidence behind. Witnesses were few, and the remote locations where the bodies were found made it difficult to trace the killer's movements. Despite the resources poured into the investigation, no suspect was ever formally charged. The media dubbed the unknown perpetrator the Crawford Killer, and fear gripped the rural community, with residents avoiding the isolated areas that had once been safe. In time, the killings ceased, but the case remained unsolved, leaving behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions. The Crawford Killer has since become a chilling chapter in Pennsylvania's criminal history, with true crime investigators and amateur sleuths continuing to search for clues in hopes of solving the case. Despite the passage of time, the mystery of who committed these gruesome murders still haunts the quiet, wooded areas of Crawford County. Chen family assassination. The Chen family assassination is one of Taiwan's most shocking and mysterious unsolved cases. On November 7, 1980, the peaceful Chen family, living in a remote area of the island's mountainous Nantou County, was found brutally murdered in their home. The victims included Mr. Chen, his wife, and their 3 children. The violent nature of the killings, combined with the apparent lack of motive, sent shockwaves through Taiwan. The crime scene revealed a chillingly methodical approach. Each member of the family had been bound and gagged before being brutally murdered. Despite the severity of the crime, there was no sign of forced entry, leading investigators to believe that the killer or killers might have been known to the family or had carefully planned the attack. However, nothing of significant value was taken from the home, and no clear motive for the massacre could be determined, further deepening the mystery. Local authorities initially pursued several theories, including a botched robbery or a personal vendetta against Mr. Chen, who was well known in the community. However, no substantial evidence surfaced to support these leads, and the case quickly grew cold. Despite extensive efforts by law enforcement, the investigation failed to yield any solid suspects or answers. Over the years, the Chen family assassination has become a symbol of unresolved crime in Taiwan. Some have speculated that the killings could have been politically motivated, possibly linked to Taiwan's tense political climate at the time. Others believe the crime was the work of a professional hitman or a group with a specific but unknown purpose. Today, the massacre remains a haunting, unsolved mystery. The Chen family's tragic death continues to intrigue and disturb both the local community and those interested in Taiwan's dark, unsolved crimes. Despite advances in forensic technology, the case has never been solved, leaving behind more questions than answers. Rubbish Killer. The Rubbish Killer is an elusive and eerie figure whose moniker derives from the disturbing way the bodies of his victims were discarded among garbage and refuse. Active during the late 1990s in an unnamed metropolitan area, this serial killer left a trail of fear and frustration as authorities struggled to identify both the perpetrator and his motivations. The Rubbish Killer's victims were primarily young women, all found in industrial or deserted areas, hidden amongst piles of trash. The bodies were left in advanced stages of decomposition, making it difficult to gather forensic evidence. Investigators noted that the killer took great care in selecting locations where the victims would blend in with the surrounding debris, prolonging the time it took for their remains to be discovered. This meticulous disposal method complicated the investigation, as any potential clues were often destroyed or contaminated by the environment. Each victim bore signs of violent assault, but beyond that, the the killer left no definitive pattern or signature that could help profile him. The randomness of the attacks, combined with the sheer anonymity of dumping bodies among city waste, frustrated detectives, the media soon coined the term rubbish killer, and the name stuck as the case gained more notoriety. Despite the growing public fear, leads in the case were scarce. The few witnesses who reported suspicious activity in the areas where bodies were later found were unable to provide any concrete descriptions of the perpetrator. The killer seemed to operate with a cold precision, avoiding security cameras and leaving no traceable connection between himself and the victims. By the early 2000s, the rubbish killer seemed to vanish just as mysteriously as he had appeared. The investigation eventually went cold, with no arrests or significant breakthroughs. To this day, the identity of the rubbish killer remains unknown, and the case continues to perplex and haunt both the victims' families and the community at large. Wilkinsburg shooting. The Wilkinsburg shooting, a horrific mass shooting that shook the small town of Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania on March 9th, 2016, claimed the lives of 5 individuals and left others wounded in its wake. This tragic event unfolded during a backyard cookout where family and friends had gathered for a peaceful evening. What started as a calm gathering quickly descended into chaos and terror. The shooting began when 2 gunmen approached the backyard party and opened fire. One of the attackers used a rifle to shoot from behind a fence, while the other moved in closer with a handgun, targeting people as they tried to flee. The ambush was calculated, with the shooters coordinating their attack to trap the victims in the small yard. The scene was described as a slaughter, with guests having little chance to escape the onslaught of gunfire. 4 people were killed on the spot, while another victim, an unborn child, died after the pregnant mother succumbed to her injuries. 2 other individuals were seriously wounded but managed to survive the attack. The brutality of the crime shocked the local community, which struggled to make sense of the violence, and investigators worked tirelessly to track down the individuals responsible for the massacre. Law enforcement believed that the attack was linked to gang activity or a long-standing personal feud, but the complexity of the crime and the involvement of multiple suspects made the investigation difficult. Eventually, Chen Shelton was charged with the killings. Prosecutors argued that he had a personal vendetta against one of the men present at the cookout, though his trial ended in a deadlocked jury in 2019. The Wilkinsburg shooting remains a deeply painful memory for the community, and while some answers have emerged, the full picture of what motivated such a senseless act of violence continues to haunt those who lost loved ones that night. Summer Country Does. The Summer County Does refers to a case involving the discovery of 2 unidentified bodies found in Sumner County, Tennessee, in the 1980s. These victims, known as Does due to their unidentified status, were discovered separately, but within a short time frame, leading to speculation about a possible connection between the 2 deaths. The first body, a female, was found in 1981 near a rural road in the county. Due to the advanced state of decomposition, authorities struggled to identify the woman or determine the cause of death. There were no distinguishing features or belongings that could offer clues about her identity. Investigators named her Sumner County Jane Doe and began an extensive search for information. Despite circulating sketches and descriptions, the woman remained unidentified. A second body, this time of a male, was found in the same area in 1984. Similar to the earlier case, there were few clues to help identify this individual. He became known as Sumner County John Doe. Investigators explored possible links between the 2 victims, suspecting that both could have been victims of foul play, but the lack of forensic evidence complicated the investigation. Over the years, law enforcement continued to revisit the case, but with limited advancements in forensic technology at the time, the identities of the Summer County does remained elusive. The rise of DNA testing and renewed interest in cold cases has recently offered hope that these long-forgotten victims could one day be identified and their stories brought to light. The Summer County Does case is a haunting reminder of the many unidentified individuals across the country whose names and stories remain unknown, waiting for closure for their families and justice for the wrongs they endured. Advances in forensic science and ongoing efforts to solve cold cases have rekindled hope that one day the Summer County Does will be identified and the mystery surrounding their deaths will finally be solved. Dayleen Pua. Dayleen Pua, a 19-year-old from Oahu, Hawaii, went missing on February 27, 2015, during a hike on the famous Haiku Stairs, also known as the Stairway to Heaven. The Haiku Stairs, a steep and illegal trail due to its dangerous conditions, offers stunning views, but is fraught with risk. Dayleen had told her grandmother about her plans to hike the stairs, despite the hike being closed to the public. Before her disappearance, Dayleen sent photos to her family while on the trail, showing her walking along the precarious stairs. These images became the last known sighting of her. When she failed to return home, her family reported her missing, sparking an extensive search effort across the dense jungle and treacherous terrain of the Haiku Stairs area. Search and rescue teams combed through the area for days, but were unable to find any trace of her. Despite widespread media attention and community efforts, including hikers who frequented the area joining the search, no substantial evidence was uncovered regarding Dayleen's whereabouts. Some speculated that the dangerous conditions of the trail may have led to an accident, while others wondered if foul play could have been involved. The case remains unsolved, with Dayleen's family continuing to seek answers. Her disappearance has raised concerns about the safety of the Haiku Stairs and has led to renewed debates about whether the trail should be reopened with improved safety measures or permanently closed to prevent future tragedies. Murder of Anthony Liu. Anthony Liu, a prominent Chinese-American businessman, was brutally murdered in Sydney, Australia in 2018. The 61-year-old Liu was found dead in his home in the suburb of Burwood, having suffered a vicious assault. Liu was well known for his ties to the Chinese-Australian community and his successful business ventures, making his murder a shocking event that captured media attention. Liu's body was discovered after concerned friends and family reported him missing. Investigators found signs of a struggle inside the home, suggesting that Liu had been targeted in a deliberate attack. The brutality of the murder raised suspicions that it might have been motivated by personal or business-related conflicts. Liu was involved in various business dealings that stretched across China and Australia, leading to speculation that his murder could have been related to those ventures. Despite a thorough investigation, including interviews with Liu's business associates and personal contacts, the case remains unsolved. Detectives have struggled to identify clear suspects or motives, though some reports hinted at financial disputes or personal grievances as potential factors. The complexity of Liu's business dealings, which spanned multiple countries, has further complicated the investigation. The unsolved nature of the case has left Liu's family and the Chinese-Australian community seeking answers and justice. Authorities continue to investigate the murder, hoping that new leads or evidence might eventually surface to solve the case. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, as it gives us motivation to craft more engaging and informative content for you.